Herbert's 100 Harem. The pirate vessel was a smaller ship, no doubt, but still had the larger corridors, as galaxy-wide standardization meant that the place had to accommodate both Gobes and Lydris in equal measure. It also meant that the corners were wide and sloping, offering little cover if you weren't willing to duck into the maintenance tunnels, but little cover went both ways. Also, it's where the mecha pilots liked to lurk, and several ambushes were foiled with ease by the 4 men. So every human currently outside cruel space is special forces. Elite special forces? David asks, and Herbert nods. We weren't sure what would be on the other side of the cruel space barrier, so we went with the philosophy of prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Herbert agrees, and the 3 IKEA nod. Must have been a surprise to find out things are the way they are, Mojo says, before holding out his arm and blocking forward movement. He points into the distance. Maybe there. Maybe, Herbert says, as he lets fly with one of his paint grenades. It goes off, and there's nothing in the area suddenly exposed by the fluorescent orange covering. I could have sworn. Mojo notes, and Herbert holds up a hand before stepping forward and mimicking what he learned from his Yaoya wives. He opens one of the nearby panels to a maintenance hallway, and all 3 IKEA stare. David raises an eye ridge and then looks down the hallway. About 3 seconds later, one of the panels is thrown violently open, and someone hits the still somewhat wet paint and is partially covered. Cloaking. Good instincts, Mojo, David remarks before a barely visible blur lands on the rising, invisible figure and drives it further into the paint, riding it through the paint like a surfboard and then launching off even as Herbert drops his cloaking and then lands among the IKEA. Good call, he remarks before suddenly launching a blade on a thin chain out of his sleeve that twists around the leg of the cloaking, and he reels her in like a landed fish. So, now that we've properly met Miss, how about you tell us where the controls for that big bad bomb might be? He dodges a few swipes from her foot claws, and Victory grabs on and holds her feet together. Much obliged, but watch your fur. I don't think orange flatters you all that much. Oh, please, I look good in anything. Victory preens, and Herbert scoffs. Okay, little lady, you want to tell the big scary men exactly what we want to know, or what? Herbert keeps it to himself that the woman has a solid 3 inches on Victory, and that puts her as the second tallest here after Mojo. Also, the idea of being surrounded by larger men is more likely to be a wet dream by the standard galactic measurement. He keeps that to himself too as he grabs the woman by the hands and pins them together. With Victory keeping her feet together and Herbert pinning the hands, she's effectively hog-tied. Poor phrasing aside, madam, you and yours have picked a fight you really shouldn't have. As we speak, an entire hunting party of Zayden and Yaoya are treating your ship as a playground and are being led by a grand mistress of the hunt. Perhaps you even heard of her, Isma, Herbert remarks, and the struggling Cloakin, suddenly going very still, tells him he just hit the nail on the head. She's here. Yes, she's my grandmother-in-law. She was bringing me to this system as a combination of test, training, and family vacation. Unlucky you. I surrender? The pirate asks. Good answer. Now, perhaps you could answer the previous question on where the controls for the bomb are? David asks, without raising his voice. Please don't hurt me? The Cloakin asks as she fades into visibility, revealing she actually does have a more subdued orange as an accent to her dark blue scales. She briefly panics at the sight, but a stern shake from Herbert, the one actively canceling her invisibility, brings her focus back to the more pressing issues. Just tell us what we want to know and there won't be a scratch on you, David promises. But I don't think you really want to know that the bomb is slave to a controller the captain carries with her at all times, she says, and David lets out a little hum. And your captain would be on or near the bridge, wouldn't she? David asks, and she nods. Our ships are currently connected and sharing atmosphere. If that bomb goes off, then the people that aren't instantly killed will be sucking on vacuum in a hurry. Does the captain have any place she goes to when things start going bad? A favorite escape pod? A panic room, maybe? She's fielding reports of this entire raid turning to complete shit and has to be thinking about hitting that bomb and bugging out. If she does that, you die, and not from us. Herbert explains, and the look of dawning horror across the cloaked's face lets him know that his words are hitting their mark. Hangar 4, 2 levels up. Her personal ship is there. It's stealth capable, the woman says, and Herbert's look of horror is mirrored on the more rodent-like faces of the other 3 men. Get moving, Hunter. We'll keep going for the bridge, and you head off the captain, David says, and Herbert nods even as he sets down the cloaked and fades away entirely. This wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't a bluff. We did put the bomb on your ship. The cloaked wails in terror. We didn't doubt the bomb, ma'am, but your willingness to use it. Mojo replies softly. Without working as part of a unit and back in familiar movements, Herbert's blurs through the ship. He moves faster than most could at a dead sprint, and is those 2 levels up in moments before rushing to one side of the vessel. Hangars 1 and 3 are there, so he rushes to the opposite end and phases through the bulkhead door to Hangar 4, just in time to catch the private ship of the captain's ramp fully close and start to lift off. No thought, just action as he accelerates further and warps the space around him even as the atmosphere is vacuumed out and the hangar is sealed before opening into space. He can feel the axiom ride in the engines act like a power siphon, and he uses that to slingshot himself into the engine room in the small stealth yacht. He stills his breathing and calms his heart as he starts to stalk through the small ship. His ears can hear muttering coming from the cockpit. Doesn't make any fucking sense. Hunting season is months away. It should have been easily preserved supplies and replacement parts, good solid payment with little issue. Transports like this shit are even insured and under orders to just surrender when caught to avoid liability. What the hell is an entire hunting pack doing here? The muttering is cut off when Herbert presses a plasma pistol onto the top of her head. The detonator, please. He may have phrased it like a request, but it was emphatically not a request. The fact that he's slowly grinding his plasma pistol in the top of the lyric's head was proof enough. Thankfully, she's not a complete idiot and begins moving very slowly to extract the detonator from her cleavage. He secures it and pockets it. Backup as well, if you'd be so kind. And no backup, the captain stutters out. You mean to tell me that you set up an extremely powerful explosive with only a single detonator? The hell do you do if it fails? We've never had to blow it. Excuse me? Herbert asks as a very unsettling suspicion crosses his mind. We never had to use the bomb, she says. Did you take it apart to reuse it later, keeping the parts fresh? He asks, and the captain pauses. It's a bomb, a machine. It's not a piece of fruit, it doesn't rot, she protests. Everything rots, you idiot, Herbert says, fishing out his communicator with his offhand. Bomb squad, this is Agent Jameson. I have the detonator. Be careful, the bomb is old. I repeat, expect enormous wear and tear at vital components. The single detonator has been secured, but the bomb is old and rotted. Acknowledge Intel. Intel acknowledged Agent. We'll take it slow and careful. Good work. I'm expecting the same from you, Bomb Squad. Confirmed. Bomb Squad out. Thank God, Herbert mutters as he pulls the device away for a moment. The captain starts to move. Hey, no squirming or my trigger finger may start to itch. Please don't kill me. We're just thieves. We haven't... the captain pleads and he snorts in derision. Why do so many of them beg? It's like their guts just fall out the moment things start going wrong. He'd respect her more if she fought back. Granted, he would have killed her and thought her an idiot. But that was still a higher opinion than he currently held of the woman. Shut up and stop fighting and things go smoother. You've been fishing for prizes, but you caught a shark. I've been... What? She stutters and he rolls his eyes. But perhaps he can test her a little. Fishing is a sport and hunting method for using baited hooks to trick piscine life into biting on them, then dragging the prize out of the water with the attached line. A shark is a large, powerful, and aggressive predator which shares the same territory, capable of tearing apart smaller boats. What I said can translate to, you were hunting for small, weak prizes and caught a substantially larger and more dangerous one than you can handle. Yes, that is what happened, she says, and he can almost hear the gears in her head churning. Look, this is just a terrible, terrible misunderstanding. Yes, you misunderstood just how dangerous we are, and now you're trying to squirm out from under the consequences, Herbert says, and he grinds the gun a little harder when he spots her reaching for the controls. Anything less than your complete and total surrender will simply hurt. Do you want to be hurt? No, she says after a moment. Good. Then stand up. Slowly. He says, taking a step back and keeping the weapon trained on her. She slowly rises before turning around, and then her jaw drops. Yes, I'm short, but that just means I'm harder to hit when people start shooting. You're not short, you're a child. Rejuvenating coma ring a bell? Or perhaps healing coma. I'm a full adult and trained soldier in a youthful package. He returns and she seems to wilt a little. On your knees. Oh? Pent up are? He primes the plasma pistol in response to the teasing. The weapon, audibly growling and glowing brighter and brighter, has her fall to her knees in a hurry. It was one of Sir Philip's more practical lessons. Dake tech and other scary weapons are very useful in that you rarely need to shoot them. He has her cuffed and then uses a twist of axiom to render her unconscious. A bit of fun with zip ties has her bound up well, and he sits in her chair. She had already left the larger pirate ship before he held her up, and it takes him a few moments to figure out the controls. Thankfully, almost all ships have the same general setup. Steering is right in front of the pilot. Atmospherics is usually to the upper left. Below is communications. Upper right is power readouts and control, and below that are weapon controls if they're not incorporated into the steering. He sees the extra buttons around steering and determines that he should stay the hell away from the lower right side, as the weapons are indeed incorporated into the steering, and he has no damn idea what all the buttons, switches, and dials on the lower right are for. Possibly the cloaking, but it could also be remote controls for the other ship, and any button could be a remote destruct button or force it to engage engines and ram the other ship. Still, he can't help but grin as he slowly, carefully, brings the ship back into hangar and sets it down. Thankfully, the hangar is mostly automated and he doesn't have to do anything to get the bulkhead doors to close and the entire hangar to repressurize. He then presses a few buttons on communications. Captain, weren't you going to go after their bomb diffusers? Why are you back in the ship? Your captain has been dealt with. Surrender and live, fight and die. Those are you options. Herbert says into the comm and grins even as he hears something explode. Who are you? The woman on the bridge demands.